I now recognize my friend, Mr. Nunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate you, Chairman Mast, for leading this very important after action. It's the only one that has really been done in the House here, despite nearly 2 years with an absentee administration evaluating its own failures. I've flown enough combat missions in both Afghanistan and Iraq to know what success looks like, including support to special operations Afghan forces on the ground in the area, as well as to know what failure looks like. In this case, the failure when the withdrawal from Kabul resulted in volunteer veterans, myself and many included through Task Force Argo, helping to evacuate 3,000 individuals. For those individuals in the audience who have been part of that incredible volunteer team, a salute to each of you. You have done more than our own federal government has done to help save Americans in that horrible situation. I want you to know that in every mission that we flew, when we landed, we immediately did a post-flight report. That's the critical after action that really drives so that we can prevent failure in the future and advance successes that can be replicated. Your testimony today does so in a way that the rest of the administration has refused to acknowledge. Sadly, 13 Americans gave their lives in the evacuation, including Corporal Deacon Page from my own district in Red Oak, Iowa, who manned the line despite intelligence being very clear that there was a threat in the area, sacrificing so that other Americans and Afghan allies could evacuate. The honor and bravery of these American soldiers will never be forgotten. Their sacrifice in the theater of combat forever reminds us that our freedom is not free. And as geopolitical tensions across the globe continue to rise, the U.S. military must be prepared for future events that could have been learned years ago from our withdrawal from Afghanistan. So we're going to go Air Force style, and I'm going to do gunship questions here. That's meant to be the ability for us to get back and forth very quickly here. Lieutenant General Sadat, now you led special forces in Afghanistan. In fact, you're still on a hit list by the Taliban in country today for the service that you rendered in the defense of Americans and your country. I want to begin by first thanking you very much for all that you've done to help save the lives of our brothers and sisters in uniform, but also to your own country. Your service and sacrifice is not unnoticed. I'd begin with saying, did you find that the Biden administration communicated a plan for withdrawal to your team in a timely manner?
No, sir, there was no plan, sorry. A plan is when it's communicated to the partners on the ground. We were Afghans, we owned Afghanistan, we were in charge there. There was no plan shown to us.
As a result, were your special operators put at great risk?
They were at great risk. Even
were Americans who depended on you to be the front line also put at great risk?
I think the confusion was real, and it put everybody at risk.
What was the impact of President Biden's go-to-zero order on assistance that the U.S. was providing to the Afghan military? Did it degrade your capabilities?
It immediately shut down all software system, including the aircraft software system for intelligence collection, navigation, and other matters.
I want to deep dive with you on that. As a recon airborne guy myself here, to the best of your knowledge, was close air support or armed overwatch or even overwatch of an intel asset provided during the evacuation of Kabul?
There were airplanes, but they didn't have the authority to pull the trigger.
Did you ever receive updates from them on what was happening real time on the ground?
No, sir.
What was the U.S. retrograde of Air Force cover in the immediate vicinity's impact to your team on the ground?
One day in June, I called the U.S. forces in Doha to give me support, and they said every day we can only send 3 drones to Afghanistan, and I said we used to have 20 drones, why not? They said the country of Oman is only allowing 3 drones per day. This is the time that across Afghanistan over 500 engagements are happening between Afghan and the Taliban forces. The U.S. could only get 3 drones to Afghanistan, and those were used to support the U.S. presence in Kabul, the embassy, and also the RS.
So, General, we've talked about how degraded your forces were, and as a result, how vulnerable both Americans and Afghans were. What did the go-to-zero order have on the Taliban at the same time?
It was celebration. They distributed sweets amongst each other, saying that the best has happened and we're going to take over the country. And it also gave them this, steroids. And therefore, a lot of them killed themselves, actually. It was unbelievable. What I saw was the zombies rushing in to take over districts and cities, although they died in hundreds.
And General, for your troops, for the forces you commanded, the abandonment by the Biden administration, what happened to the Special Operations Forces that were left behind in Afghanistan?
Some were killed. Some 30,000 Afghan forces are in Taliban prisons. Some 10,000 special operators are in Iran that every day they're being arrested, tortured, and sent back to Afghanistan. The other day I got a call from Colonel Razik. He's one of the police officers who served under Khoshal in Pakistan. He lost one of his legs in Gereshk district of Helmand. The police took over his prosthetic leg and had him crawl for 30 feet into reaching the car. He called me back and he said, "Sir, what do you want me to do? Should I kill myself, go to Afghanistan, or go to Iran?" In Iran, our officers, general officers and colonels are working in floor mills. They're doing dirt jobs. They're working in street cleaning. Whatever money they earn, they have to give for visa. Iranian visa is very, very expensive. When their visas expired, they're being kicked back to Afghanistan, and the Taliban immediately arrest them, and then they disappear from the radar.
General, thank you very much for your service, for the service of the forces under you. It is never an advantage or a wish to have to lose our own forces at the hands of the enemy. It's even worse when we have to hand our own forces over to the enemy. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you very much for leading on this, and I want to emphasize the fact here that after 2 decades of service by both American men and women and by your own countrymen, we leave behind a situation worse than where we found it, and we put on the altar of sacrifice the very men and women who stood up for a future of Afghan. Know that you have allies here. Thank you for the after action. I yield my time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Nunn.